problems. Imagine a world where most of the people are able to do what they like and they can excel in. Imagine what a world that would be, right? So yeah, I do believe education is really the fundamentals of everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I always tell my my co-workers, friends in Project Ed, students who wanted to volunteer to Project Ed, right? It's not only you making impact to the community, but rather the experience will make an impact to you immensely. So though I had a very enjoyable high school, middle school, primary school, or my schooling system, school time I enjoyed a lot, but I think my struggle was really to understand myself until university and until I started Project Ed. Yeah.
Wow.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Creekcast Season 2 Firewall. Here today we have another really special guest to join us for this week's episode. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Everyone, appreciate it. My name is Nelson. I am a proud Malaysian and the founder of Project Ed, a NGO based in Malaysia which tackles education inequality by empowering the underprivileged students to pursue their tertiary education dreams.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting of you too. Well, we want to thank you for coming here to the
my
podcast.
pleasure.
It means a lot.
My great pleasure.
Another great guest to add to the list.
Yeah, so we just wanted to kind of start off the conversation by leading in with one topic so we can kind of start grounding what you move in and about your NGO. So we just wanted to kind of start dwelling into education and what you see as its importance and how critical it is to the world.
Right. Well, I always believe that knowledge is free, education is expensive, and by all means, I do believe that education, or rather knowledge, is the fundamentals of all. If everyone has equal opportunity to access to quality education, they're more likely to be able to grab those opportunities to achieve their fullest potentials. And that really solves a lot of problems. Imagine a world where most of the people are able to do what they like and they can excel in. Imagine what a world that would be, right? So yeah, I do believe education is really the fundamentals of everything, and including all to solve the SDGs that we are talking about, right? So I think, education is part and parcels of everywhere.
Yeah. Here in the Creekcast, we've talked about education, and I think you hit on the main points that we agree with. We need to change education in order to change the world first.
Right.
So it's just wonderful to have another person like that here. So moving on, we wanted to ask, are there any issues in Malaysia with education, or where did this come from?
Right, absolutely. Problems come from everywhere. So education issues in Malaysia, just to name a few. One, of course, just to give context, right? In Malaysia, we have free education from the age of 7 all the way up to age of 17. So basically, which is we call it secondary school, but it's kind of like a high school in the US. And we will after that, students will go into different routes, whether they continue studying or they will pursue A levels, or which is the year 12, year 13 in the US, right? Things like this, and 2 years in colleges, and then moving on to 4 years in colleges / universities, we call it here. So I think there are a few problems. So I think one is really what are the post-secondary school pathways that we have? Because for the first 7-year-old to 17-year-old, you get free education, but after that, lots of problems coming up when first students and family don't have the financial capability to pursue their post-secondary school pathway, or rather tertiary education. Second, they don't know where to go. right? So they don't understand, they don't have the access to information to know which pathway, what courses, which university, or rather if, or even, the fundamental question of if university is the right way for me to go, other than, if I should go to apprenticeship or if I should go for, to try entrepreneurship, things like this,
Yeah.
right? So these are the, well, I'm pretty sure you all can relate pretty well now that you're all high school students, almost there, right? So thinking about this stuff. So in Malaysia, a lot of students don't have such opportunity or privilege to actually think about those. Either there are only two pathways for them. Either they study, get scholarship, or they quit. They go and work. So yeah, especially in rural areas of Malaysia. So these are the post-secondary schools problems in education. And of course, there are tons of problems in the education system, even in the free ones, like in secondary school, how teachers teach, the quality of teachers, the motivations of students, whether or not they are they can focus in studies. Why? Because they have to help out their parents, especially in the rural areas. Before even before classes or after classes, they don't have time to study. No focus in education. So they don't understand why do they have to study, right? So why do I have to study differentiation, integrations, and all this stuff, calculus, which I don't think I will use it as a farmer,
Yeah.
I have some hard PTSD by just those words.
Yeah, I just heard them, man.
Yeah, so these are the things that just to give some context of the issues in the Malaysian education systems. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very, very similar and in tone with what we see all around the world, basically, where it just seems that people don't really understand why we're seeing this, why we're learning this, when it really doesn't serve a common goal, or like it doesn't really benefit a common majority, because it's really, if I may say, useless.
Right. Well, I mean, useless for somebody, but useful for other ones, right? So it's.
I mean, if you're going to be like a rocket scientist, you will use most of the math you're given. But for the rest of the people, they're never going to say it. So I think it's a really frustrating place to be in as a student, for you to. Oh well, I have a perfect example actually. So today, I'm actually going out to boat.
Okay.
So, but I didn't have any idea how to boat before like yesterday. I just knew I had to boat, but didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to ask around. I asked my parents, but people don't usually have the luxury of that.
Right.
So I think it should be a school practice to show you these fundamental things. Like, come on. If people don't know how to boat, especially when you're young, then you're not like the whole country is not going to make progress. So I think it was very astounding to be like, damn, I don't know how to boat. Like, holy.
Yeah, and I think that's like what we see mostly. I mean, as you say, like education, the way it's set up will help certain people, certain groups of people, but is it really targeted to help people, students, kids find their path in life? Is it really set up to allow people to test everything and know what they're good at, what they aren't good at, what they need, what they don't need, and kind of lay a base? Because once people graduate, mostly they end up being like, okay, so now what? When does this bus pick me up?
Absolutely. I really love what you said, about the systems, education system actually help certain people excel. So rather, certain people will excel in this system, but some people won't. But it doesn't mean that those people are bad or they're poor in studying. It's just that they are not accustomed to that system, right? And
exactly.
That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, artists are just left over because art is not considered valuable in this society because it doesn't necessarily produce a steady source of income. Therefore, it's useless in the eyes of the system, which is just a terrible mindset to have. Since, well, artists are the spice of life. I'm personally nowhere near an artist. But I really appreciate the people who are, because, well, it's just the whole creativity and thought process. It's pretty hard. Like, it's the same amount of thought process and just general intelligence that a heavy mathematician would have, but just put into a different perspective.
Yeah, because people are different.
Yeah, but this society doesn't value that, so they're left in the wayside.
Yeah.
So terrible stuff. So right now we're going to move into our little ad break, and then we're going to follow up with more questions. So stick around. It's a short ad break. So hold on, and we'll see you back in a second.
Welcome back from that ad break, everyone. Still generating basically no money. So we're going to start moving on into some more personal questions to kind of know you a little bit better. So first off, it does breed the question. You're involved in education. So what was your education like?
Well, my education was pretty privileged. I came from I wouldn't say a wealthy, but like okay family, normal family whereby I'm the single child, and my dad works as a factory manager, so we would live quite okay-ish. Well, didn't have to struggle with putting food on table, and my mom is a housewife. So yeah, ever since I was born. So yeah, and well, education wise, I think. Well, my mom actually put a lot of emphasis, though both of them aren't. Like, my parents aren't university graduates. They drop out after high school. Still, they understood, they understood the importance of education, the value of education, right? So, in my hometown, where I came from, a quite rural area of Malaysia. So those places, in that place called Pontian, people don't actually value as much as my parents do back then. So I had, when I was young, I had quite interesting. I have tuitions. I went to learn piano. So that was quite a funny story. I was tricked by my parents to learn piano because they asked me whether I wanted a piano as a birthday gift. When you were like 5-year-old, of course you say yes, right? Ever since I had to learn piano then. So yeah, no, things like that. People, my parents' friends would think that, they were very competitive. They want me to be the best. They're like so-called tiger moms, right? So things like this. But I do appreciate, until when I came to the city in KL, then only I realized, and I actually appreciate what they have done, because things get super competitive in cities, and these things get me to be the average in the city. Right? I have friends who learn piano, who learned whatever instruments that you can think of, guitar, whatsoever, right? 3-4 kinds of musical instruments and different kind of things. And well, that's one part. And the other part is my parents still pay very much attention to my emotional and my mindset growing, because I was one of the few people in my group or in my community that when I grew up, right, I learned how to fish. I learned how to, catch fish. I learned how to breed fish. Well, I used to earn money by selling, the fighting fish, we call it, to my friends, so that I can earn some bucks by breeding them on my own. So things like this. So I got to experience some very village style of living because of the way I grew up, and that actually taught me a lot as a person, and actually brought me lots of values in terms of learning, right? So moving forward, when I in university, of course, I think I was privileged to be a first generation university student, students in my family, and I think university taught me a lot about understanding what I really want and what I really don't want, right? And stay firm to things that I want. So yeah, that's basically context of my education like.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it sounds very it really stands out that what you kind of called out to as your education, the base wasn't really learning the multiplication table, but it was actually learning these skills and abilities such as piano and fishing and all these things that kind of allowed you to grow on a different level. So it's not just memorization and replication. It's actually learning to grow and critical thinking and things like that. So yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that.
Yep.
So yeah, moving on to our second question we have here is, do you have any specific memory that made you angry towards the education system, or how was this born?
Right. Oh, for sure. So I was never the smartest kids in my school, right? Well, I did excel in the current education systems that we have. I was pretty privileged. I received a full scholarship to study my tertiary education overseas. But I was, well, I mean, I think the granting of scholarships, right, and that thing, it's who deserve to go, who deserve the scholarship, and who should continue to study. I think that made me quite angry because, well, why I got the scholarship, because I was 1A more than my friends, or 1A plus more than my friends, a few marks away. So, and my friends who didn't make the cut, they drop out.
Oh,
they don't study anymore. So back then it was that exam that made the cut, right? So it's more like, that exam actually make or break.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say your life, but to a certain extent your life, right? So you would have a different pathway trajectory in your life if you had not sure whether it's good or bad. Everyone has their own life, but yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So I thought, I was quite angry about it because lots of my friends who I thought they are way smarter than I do, they deserve to be an engineer and than I do, things like this. But then they decided to drop out and they earn minimum wages. So these are the things that I was quite angry about the educational system, particularly how we actually mark the exams and how we actually get people to tertiary education. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really relate to that anger, because when the feeling of like the way exams are set and like the value that exams are given, especially, which is just very specific way of like achieving learning and achieving demonstration that you learn or that things. It's I mean, it ends up being unfair, and as you said, it ends up marking the life trajectory of some people, because if they don't make the cut, then they have to completely change their path.
Yep. Imagine you prepared super well, and on that exam day you were sick. So things like this happen, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Everything down the drain.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you weren't a great student in school necessarily, like you weren't the best of the best.
Right.
So what did you necessarily struggle with, and what did you also do well in, to kind of understand the person that you were and what your best capacities are?
Right. Well, to be fair, I struggled quite a bit to understand who I am as a person, and when I was young, because even until university time, then only I realized where and how I should move with my life, right? So living in this part of the world, in Malaysia or in Asia, I'll put it this way, right? So people will follow what their parents instruction very much, or they will listen to their parents advice as closely as possible, right? So not to say not listening to we shouldn't listen to parents, but it's more like filter out what and based on what you have. So I think my struggle was in school is that I don't have the values and like the direction that I want of my own, right? So most of the directions and the values are based on my family values and what my parents were thinking, thought this would be good for me. Though I really like aircraft, so and they wanted me to be an engineer, so hence I studied aerospace engineering in university. So that was my struggle. Though I had a very enjoyable high school, middle school, primary school, or my schooling system, school time I enjoyed a lot. But I think my struggle was really to understand myself until university and until I started Project Ed. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. Just not really understanding themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and it's normal. Like this whole stage of life is just trying to figure yourself out. There's people who are on their 40s and haven't figured themselves out.
Oh yeah.
So it's good to have a head start on that before everything starts crumbling away. Because in the meantime, we don't have to pay taxes and that stuff. So
that's the cushion that you can fall back on, right? So
yeah, I mean, and we heard about Project Ed actually, and we wanted to ask just what led to its development and just the general reason of why Project Ed exists.
Right. Well, it really relates to my blessing. I mean, my privilege to pursue my tertiary education. I was super blessed to receive full scholarship to study overseas, to fulfill my tertiary education dreams. Right. While like I said just now, lots of my friends who missed the cut, they couldn't pursue tertiary education just a few months away. So when I received the scholarship, there was this thing that struck me when my scholarship manager, right, during the award ceremony, he literally just said this: the scholarship was given through you to the community, not to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually struck me. I always think that scholarship is, it's money for you to study, right? That's all yours. You deserved it, right? But that phrase of words actually, made me think bigger. Okay, interesting. Through me, what can I do, as a student? So from there, I slowly realized that, I can actually do something. I have extra allowance every month. They were quite generous. So why not? I contribute 45 ringgit Malaysia every month, which is about $10. $11 USD every month. To create a scholarship fund. And I thought, I myself might not be able to sponsor a student, but let's get tons of other scholars. And most people are very happy to contribute 45 ringgit or $11 every month, right? So it's literally like a meal or 2 meals in Malaysia. So things like this, right? So 45 ringgit, you get a few meals actually in Malaysia. When we study overseas, then it's like 1-2 meals, right? So things like this. Then we started. I get a few friends to found this together and really to work on this. And initially, we got our funds, and we got about 100 students / scholars who wants to contribute. And from there, we started having this fund. And funny thing, we realized that we only collect funds and we don't do anything else. So we realized that, we need to do something, right? So we found out the second problem. So initially we thought, students are lack of financial assistance, and we wanted to provide the financial assistance, right? And then we started to realize that we don't do anything until we collect a certain money to so that we are able to contribute back, right? So then we realized second problem, which is lack of access to knowledge. Lack of access to information about post-secondary school pathways. Hence, we run workshops. We run workshops with students from low-performing schools and rural area schools. We collaborate with Teach for Malaysia. It's similar to Teach for America. I'm not sure if there's Teach for Mexico or whatnot. Things like this, right? So NGOs to work with them to get to the schools to actually share information about post-secondary school pathways. Yeah. And from there, we slowly get more students to join us, and more scholars and more funds, and then more people believe in us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that once again proves like a lot of the people we've had on. It's just the same kind of the same story in a sense, where things just naturally they happen, and out of kind of good intention. It starts off with a very small seed of an idea, and then it just starts growing and growing until it becomes something that actually benefits people and communities. So yeah, I mean that's a really noble cause
and a really good lesson to have like people expect to start projects and instantly get the gratification and change the world in one night, but people don't realize that stuff and projects need time and care. It's not something you can just do like for 2 months and be like, yeah, I did my part.
Yeah.
Or how did this not work? Yeah, like obviously it's not going to work. Just how long did it take for Project Ed to just get off the ground?
Right. Well, we started off as an idea and started to kickstart it back in 2017. And it took us 1 year to get a registration as an NGO. Why? Because the Registry of Society, which is the NGO registration body, didn't recognize us. They thought we were so young. So the terms and conditions or rules of regulation, right, it's actually 18 and above. And all of us are 18, 19 back then, 18 back then. So they thought we were so young, and they thought we couldn't handle an organization, right? So we're just kids, starting off university, let alone, running an organization. So they thought we weren't serious. They thought we just wanted fame. We just wanted to, play around and get certifications, etc. Right? So and it took us a year to actually convince them with multiple trips to the office and to sit down. While I personally sat down and talk to them and to tell them our plans, our staff, so that we are able to get registered. So that was the thing, and and then the next thing, to really get off to our first award ceremony, right? To give scholarships to people. Really, it took us about a year or so to save enough money to fund. And our first scholarship round, we managed to sponsor 3 students who now graduated. All of them graduated and now contributing back to the community with different expertise and different fields. So yeah, it actually took us a year or so to actually get firm with our ground.
Wow. And just kind of curious there, because a lot of the time most of the time with NGOs, we hear that they apply to be officially certified as NGOs. So I just don't really know enough to know the impact, but what benefits does it bring to be identified officially as an NGO?
Right. So, we registered as an NGO because back then we didn't want this to be a business entity. We always think that, me and my friends, we always think that this should be a student-led organization, so that students like us, or in the future, now that I pass it down to my juniors, they all get to learn about leadership during school time and to do real work, right? So as a professional NGO body. So that was the ultimate motive. And to register as an NGO, there's different countries have different rules, and in Malaysia you need 7 people from different states. We only have 14 states in Malaysia, so you need to you need to get 7 people from different states to actually run that, right? So that's crazy. And then and then that was the toughest part to actually get started because of the rules and regulations, to be fair. And
I mean that kind of leads on into one of our doubts as well, which is what were and are the main challenges of managing Project Ed, and the whole process. It always seems very easy and very this is great, we should all do it when you look at it on the surface, but then you look into it and there's a lot of challenges. So what are the main ones?
Right. Of course. I think first we were too young, and people didn't really take us very seriously. So it took us a while to actually prove them, to convince them that, hey, we are really doing something real. So they started to, and that happens when we got our first grant. We received a Lenovo grant, and we received a grant from our scholarship provider. So from the nationals, our Sovereign Wealth Fund of Malaysia. So they provide us with some grants and get us to run some workshops, and that partnerships actually create more partnerships with other entities, right? So things like this, and then second challenge is really people. So I think that's always a problem in organization, regardless whether it's for profit, non-profit, small or big. People is always the toughest to manage, and let alone when we are young as a 19, 20 kids, right? So 20-year-olds, right? So I thought that was quite interesting. We learned a lot. To how do we gather a group of people, a community, to do good for people.
Yeah.
So that was something that I learned, tough way. So initially I thought it was like, okay, let's get volunteers, as many as possible. But I then realized that a lot of volunteers, right, they just wanted the name.
Yeah.
They just wanted the certifications and they just wanted a nice name and CV, right? So how do we identify the real people who want to do good work and the people who want to consistently contribute? So that was the toughest part for me, particularly as a leader of this organization. That's the second thing, people. And the third thing, if I may share, really is also time management. When you're studying, how do you manage your time while running a project? Or rather an organization? So that took some time for all of us because all of us were students back then. But it was good learning process for me at least. To understand and now better manage my time.
Yeah.
So speaking of Project Ed, do you have any particular stories about people that you met there that left a mark on you? Just wanted to know.
For sure. Well, something very interesting. This first scholar that we awarded the scholarship, she actually dropped out. So she studied for first year in university. Then she dropped out for 2 years. Her plan was 2 years, but we found her in the first and a half year. So her plan was to drop out for 2 years so that she could earn enough money to continue studying for a second and third year of university.
Yeah.
So it was a waste of talent, we thought. And she got 4.0. She started, some projects to help people. She was a natural giver.
Yeah.
And we thought we wanted to align with our values. So we wanted to provide her with the opportunity to continue studying. So hopefully, we didn't find her too late, right? So we found her at 1 year and each kind of time, and she managed to go back to university, and now she graduated. So during her university time, it was very impactful and very inspiring that she started a project to teach students about English. So she studied TESOL, teaching English as second language. So she's pretty comfortable with her English. So she taught people how to use all the grammar correctly and all this comprehension stuff. So it was quite interesting. She started a community on Facebook and it grew. And wow, so that was an impact that she could create as an individual, as a student back then. And we thought we invested in the right people. And now she continuously work on other projects to support. And she also helped out Project Ed also to contribute back to the community.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that shows, once again, like, if you help one person to kind of help them at least achieve some of their potential and have the chance to at least achieve it, it can definitely just give back to not just themselves, but the whole community, which is really something fantastic. And obviously that leaves a mark on, it left a mark on you. And it does breed the question of how has Project Ed changed you throughout this whole process as a person? I mean, you mentioned like time management and all these skills, but how do you think it really changed your mindset and kind of you to your core?
Right. Well, that's a very good question. I think it changed my life to understand through different lens of perspectives. So before Project Ed, I was a university. I was a college student. I did A levels. Wanted to focus on my studies, so that I could graduate and get a job with reasonable salary, right? So decent salary. So that was my plan. And Project Ed actually changed me as a person because I got the opportunity to work with the grassroots level to understand the problems. I became more empathetic, and also had the opportunity. I was super blessed with Project Ed. I got opportunity to travel around the world with different programs, fully funded programs. I went to the US, went to a few times to study and to have all these kind of fellowships, right? So, and these things actually, and also met a lot of people, which created a community. These things actually changed my lens of perspectives and how I view the world and how will I think, right? How I think. So these are the things that actually, wouldn't happen, or rather, it would take longer to happen without Project Ed. So those are the things that I really appreciate. Other than just the impact that we see on the ground, it also impacted me a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's why I always tell my my co-workers, friends in Project Ed, students who wanted to volunteer to Project Ed, right? It's not only you making impact to the community, but rather the experience will make an impact to you immensely. So yeah.
I think that all these projects are exactly about that, just leaving a mark on someone, on anything really, just for the better. Just try to make leave the world better than you found it. I think that's the main takeaway we have from not only this episode but generally all of them. That so far everyone just wants to make the world a better place, and I think that's a noble enough just motive for anything really.
Yeah, and I think as you said, like it isn't just you give and you gain nothing. It's really a transaction where you're giving to the community and you're trying to help, but you also gain so much experience and so much life experience that really helps you and allows you to grow as a person, probably emotionally and mentally, because all these things require so many different abilities. Whether you're in a team or not, it requires of you to manage people and improve your social skills and do all these different things that in the end allow you to maybe go out into your out of your comfort zone, but it really allows you to grow when you're out of your comfort zone. So I think that's really a nice take that you gave of how it's not just you giving, but you also get something in return.
For sure.
Yeah, just that in general, how not only you affect people, but people affect you.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
absolutely.
It's a beautiful transaction, honestly. So
it's always a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Here we have our final 3 questions. These are known as the big 3 because they're the hardest hitting questions, the more thought-provoking ones of the lot.
Right.
And we ask this to all our guests.
Okay.
Just to try to just know them better, and just the more deeper the questions, the more you know a person. So
right.
The first question we have here is one of the ones that we get similar answers to, but always great ones. Okay. Who is your biggest inspiration in your life, either personally or professionally?
Well, okay. No, that's a very good question. Well, I will have to give it to Kobe Bryant. So I think I'm a huge basketball fan, huge Lakers fans. So, well, I mean, they recently lost, but anyways, well, I think Kobe Bryant actually made an immense impact in my life, because not only of his basketball skills, but also I think more importantly is his mentality. So thinking about it, his Mamba mentality, where he's so preserved, so focused to what he knows and he wants to create, the values that he wants to create. Think about it, who on earth can be one of the greatest basketball players and then turn into business and created such an empire and then became an Oscar winner?
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me, how much focus he has into what he is doing, and how much he can create values for the people. So yeah, well, not only what the 5 a.m. club, you wake up at 5 a.m. stuff like that. So that's aside, I think the beauty is, well, it's really that focus. How wow, it's just amazing, and that he is the person that I really looked up to a lot. How can I in different fields, how can I create the biggest impact based on my skills, my resources? How can I bring the most values to where I am today in the field? And then in the future, if I go to other fields, how can I also create such level of impact?
Yeah. I mean, you hear that a lot when people talk about the Mamba mentality and Kobe Bryant, where it's really allowed a lot of people's lives to be changed because it's such determination, such focus, such work ethic that really allows to that's the core of achieving your dreams. At the end of the day, you have to work for them. It's not just gonna come on a silver platter. You have to strive and go through the low parts and the high parts. So yeah, that's an answer that we never got. So really cool.
Yeah, we usually get the same range of answer. I'm not saying that they're bad answers, but it's just fresh to have a different perspective.
Definitely. So, obviously you've gotten to a certain point in your life, and you've worked, as you've told us, on Project Ed, and it's gotten really far, to be honest. So obviously this isn't the end of the road. And what would you say are 3 main goals for your future, whether it be Project Ed or whether it be a different project or idea that you have?
Right. That's a tough one. For Project Ed, it's always one day Project Ed will no longer exist anymore. Because that's when education opportunity is equal for everyone. And with that, there's no existence needed for Project Ed. And we are very willingly to close that down. But that's a very, very far and ambitious goal that we have, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of people. It's not only us that we can achieve that. Well, we can always close down, but it takes more people and more stakeholders to achieve that goal. So yeah. And 3 main goals for myself, well, for the future, right? For my future self, I think first thing is I wish to, well, I'm striving, I hope, I aim to, I aim to always create an impact in the field that I want to be. So the field that I identified is really education and social impact scene. So I hope and I aimed to become an enabler in this scene. So because of working with Project Ed, I realized that there's so much that I can do, and there's so much more that if I have the more resources, I can achieve way bigger. So with my current profession as an investment analyst, I hope one day I'll be able to focus on impact investing to actually, mobilize the power of finance and money to create larger impact in the education scene, and hopefully a bigger scene in other environmental and societal challenges. So that's one. And then second thing, I hope to be better self every day. I think that's not for my future self, but for my tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better self than I do today to learn everything. And then the third thing really is to see. Well, I mean that's a very far goal, but I hope to create, or rather to be a part of movement whereby we create better individuals with humanity and empathy, and be able to think independently. So this third goal is really a very far-fetched and really ambitious goal that I have, and I hope to be in this movement, right? To create this, because why? Like we have discussed just now, right? So humans are the fundamentals of everything. And why are we having these problems today? It's also because of humans, right? So if we can create, or to nurture a better human with better, with empathy, with humanity, and also with be able to think independently, I think that would create a better future for all of us.
Yeah. And they may be big goals, but by all means, they're achievable. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
We have a long road ahead of us, like all three of us and whoever is listening. So it may seem maybe a little too big to be done, but I'll assure you, with perseverance and just the right attitude, it can be done. So,
and that's the Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, we'll have you on when you achieve those
once
goals.
you do that, we will make you make your reprise here.
One day.
And finally, what every human wants in this world is to leave a mark in this world, leave a legacy. What would that be for you?
Right. Well, when I was young, I always tell my parents that I wanted to be a Superman, a superhero. Exactly. Well, but thinking about it, right, one way or another, I am being a superhero to my community. Right. It's just that how big, we don't have to save the world. And we are saving the world, and it depends on how you define the world, right? So some people, the world is their family. Some people, the world is themselves. Some people, the world is the real world. Some people, it's their nation. Some people, it's the community. So, in one way or another, I am actually fulfilling what I wanted to be when I was young, right? To be a superhero. And to link back to the question, what do I want to make a mark when I leave this world, right? It's really a very, it's a question like when I die, what will people actually think about? Or what will people actually say? Will they think of me as a person who have, I hope one day when I pass away, people will actually think of, Nelson have helped me on this and that, right? To be a giver. So regardless how big or how small it could be, Nelson gave me one ringgit, so that I could buy a drink that day. I was so thirsty. So that actually marks something, that I want to. Well, to sum it up, is actually to be consistently be a giver, and so that the world be a better place. And my world is the community that I live in, and hopefully the community will get larger and larger.
Yeah.
So,
that's a great answer, and it always ends up kind of leading into the same thing, which is, we can't all just expect to completely change the entire world. And as you said, like, for people and their communities, you're changing your community, you're impacting your community, and that's really something to look up to. And the idea of the mark that you want to leave is of that of a giver. It's something beautiful, honestly. So yeah, I applaud you for that.
Thank you. And if I may share, right, one last phrase that I suddenly thought of, and I think that's very beautiful. It's by this philosopher called Rumi. So he actually said, when yesterday I was so smart, I wanted to change the world. Today I'm so wise, I'm changing myself. So I think a lot of times it starts with small things, little things that you have, starting to change yourself and the community that you have in, and slowly the community will get larger.
Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful phrase to live off on.
Right?
So yeah,
it's been a pleasure, honestly.
Yeah, really, a pleasure and an honor.
My great pleasure. Appreciate that. No, thank you for having me. For this wonderful conversation. I hope it's my 2 cents can make an impact, or one way or another, to the audience, and hopefully we all can make a change to the community.
Yeah, definitely. Best of luck with Project Ed and everything that is to come for your future. Let's hope that your community grows and it really becomes a community of givers.
Thank you so much. That goes to you all too. All the best.
So yeah, thank you, listener, for sticking around up to the end. Thanks for listening. This has been the Creekcast Season 2 Firewall. Be aware, more episodes every Monday. Here's our Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for anyone who is watching on YouTube right now. If you're on Spotify, well, check out the YouTube videos. They're high quality stuff. So that's been it. Thanks for listening, and see you next Monday. Bye bye.
Peace.